Hey, Rob, how you going?
Hey, great, Scotty. Great to have me back, my friend. Here to talk wine and beer, our virtual event coming up, of course, on the 17th from 7 to 9 p.m. New South Wales time in Australia and the Pacific. And we've got the launch of Thanksgiving Eve on the November 24th session, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which will catch Canada and the United States, Mexico, and the Americas. So I'm really excited to do this with you, brother.
Hey, it's so good, mate. Not everyone drinks, but hey, the people who do love their beer and wine and spirits too. Are
They
you any
do.
good at spirits, or do you just like beer and wine?
Well, I mean, I'm a generalist in spirits. You touch upon spirits when you learn a lot about wine and beer. You take things like the WSET or WSET. I did it while I was doing my level 3 advanced, which gets you professionally certified in that stream. I believe it's its own separate stream now, and spirits is massive. It's really guided largely by whiskey. Whiskey is probably the preeminent spirit in the world, the most consumed being vodka. And then, of course, you've got a lot of love spirits like with rich histories like rum globally, as well as things like tequila. So, and gin. I mean, there's just a plethora of things to talk about there.
Hey, is it poor taste for me to have a coffee while we're talking about beer and wine?
No, I had a coffee just before starting this session. So, gotta have a little jolt of caffeine.
Well, I just got back from a bike ride and I smashed down a quick sandwich, and I've still got to have my coffee. And if I don't do that, it'll be boring old Scotty, probably. But anyway, hey, listen, I've got a challenge for you, right? I
Sure.
don't do spirits because I had a misspent youth, and my stomach reminds me of my misspent youth every time I smell it. But I like beer and wine, and I have this weird thing, right, that I want your opinion on. I have this weird thing that I really like German beers.
Well,
They're
that
just
one's
my palate.
actually
I don't know what it is. Is that a heritage thing, or is it a style of them? I'm yet to find a
could
German
be. I mean,
beer. This is
Stellar
Belgium or
Artois
something.
is actually Belgian. It's actually
Yeah, but
Belgian.
it's the
Sebastian
same region,
Artois.
sort of, for me. But I
Sebastian
have
Artois.
found I found I like all of them. What is that all about? Why? I went to America, spent months in America, and I really didn't find a beer over there I liked. But it's the opposite for that style. Why?
Well, you're thinking of more of the mass market beer because craft beer, the whole craft beer explosion has really imported a lot of stylistically speaking what the Belgians and the Germans have been doing for literally at least 10 centuries. So to answer that, your standard style of North American lager, which is lagers, I mean, Stella Artois is a form of a lager. It's called a Helles lager. Was launched at
Go,
Christmas in
go back. How do you pronounce it?
1926. Helles, Helles, almost like hell, but with ES added to it. And that was a Christmas. So Stella's a star. So it was named after a Christmas star, 1926. It was the launch of that Christmas beer. And they resurrected a brewery that had been around, I believe, since 1377 and ran into disarray. It actually a discontinued operation and was brought back and is now part of a global conglomerate known as Labatt AB InBev, which is a massive machine headquartered out of Sao Paulo, Brazil, believe it or not. And they control about 30% of all beer sales by volume globally. And globally, you're looking at beer being, I think, about $750 billion annually in sales across this planet.
Wow. Hey, we should start a brewery. That's what we should do.
Yeah, so breweries are easier to start. You just need you need some good old machinery. You can convert old dairy equipment. It's you're not reliant on what goes on outside of the brewery because you can import your hops, your grains. Water can even be trucked in now through reverse osmosis and distillation, so you can control your water supply. You no longer have to worry about being right beside a fresh source of spring water like you once did. But to get back to that stylistically you were talking about, North American style lagers, we like to carbonate our lagers, and they tend to be heavily carbonated, almost like soda pop. They actually inject CO2 into the beer in the canning or bottling facilities. And with that, the European styles tend to be a little less carbonated. They tend to be softer. They tend to be a bit easier to drink. And it tends to appeal more to people on that front, and it's something that they've done a great job at.
Yeah, well, I've just never known the reason why. I just thought, well, maybe I don't know. I just don't have any explanation for it. And oddly enough, you probably know this already, but Foster's in Australia is not a popular beer.
No, I knew that's like one of your worst beers. You guys don't even consider that as a beer to really drink. That Didn't that explode with Crocodile Dundee, the movie? I think it did in the 80s. All of a sudden, Foster's was popular in the 80s, across Canada anyway, I think into a little bit in the States. But you're right. I've heard that. I've heard Foster's, and I've never found it to be a great beer. It's just a mass marketed, mass produced beer.
And my fear was it was the same with all of these, right? So it's just the same, but for some reason I like that.
Yeah.
This
But I
isn't
love
an ad, by
Stella
the way. I'm
Artois.
not sponsored by these guys. This is just
High
a
five to
general comment.
Sebastian Artois. I mean, that's a great beer. It's globally one of the largest selling lagers on the planet. Lagers are, I believe, about 90% of all sales globally because it's light, it's easy, it's cold fermented, so you sort of restrict the flavors in it. You tend to drink it nice and cold and cool. It's refreshing. It's a kind of style of beer that seems to go in any climate and any weather. When you get into stouts, you get into Trappist style ales and you get into IPAs that are more heavy and hearty. Some of these things are really calorie laden. I think they have as much calories as a Big Mac.
Well,
they're heavy. Those are lighter for sure.
Oh, okay.
But these are, it's much lighter. But the lighter style of beer has a much wider appeal to the population globally. And it's easy. And in hot weather, beer dominates. I mean, you go to India, for instance, you go into Southeast Asia. I know you've traveled the world a lot. You go into South America and to the warmer parts. Let's exclude wine producing powers like Chile and Argentina out of that equation for a second. People tend to like their lager style, refreshing, cold, cool beers in the heat. They're not going to be reaching for things that are full bodied and heavy.
Yeah, well, there's nothing, I don't know, probably happens all over the world, but, we mow our lawns in Australia a lot. And, the moment we mow our lawn, there's nothing better having a cold beer going, hey, look at my lawn.
Well, that's just it. I mean, the Canadian mosaic up here, it's tied to hockey. It's tied to outdoor activity. It's tied to canoeing, camping, cottaging, boating. Everybody loves a beer like Stella Artois just sitting in front of them when it's cold.
Yeah. Well, I tend to drink a mid-strength, believe it or not, but rather than a full, I'm into the unleaded rather than leaded. I just enjoy a taste of a beer on a hot day, like you said, rather than having to go and get physically drunk. But, so I enjoy beer. And if I had a choice over both, I've been through stages of my life where I preferred wine, or red wine in particular, over beer. And I'm back into the beer phase for the last few years, but I just enjoy a casual beer. So what's your preference if you had to have a choice? Well, I reckon I'm thinking you're more wine.
I'm actually right widely across the board. I have an equal love for both. I've spent so much time learning so much about both and continue to do so. It's an ongoing process. It's like business building. It's something that's so deep in knowledge. You could claim to be a master of wine or a master beer sommelier. It's like having a PhD in biochemistry. The field is so huge, you probably just have a PhD in a stream of it. Or you have some excellent insights and knowledge, but there's just, it's an endless amount of information that you could probably never absorb even in 10 lifetimes.
Yeah, probably fair enough. And it's interesting. It reminds me of that quote, the more you know you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's something like that. Yeah, I remember that in university. It's like, and then we used to always joke that the title PhD meant piled higher and deeper because they just get more specific. And yet there's so much more information just around you on a wide level, right?
Yeah. But hey, so we've got the event coming up soon.
We do.
As a shameless plug, there's also another one in between now and then where I talk about business.
Awesome.
About how to value your business. So when it's time to sell or when it's not time to sell, but how do you know the value in your business? I've got a session coming up with 2 guests from America. So that's coming up, which is about to go and be released. So anyone wants to attend that. But after that, we roll straight into yours, which is on the 20, what do we got here? 17 and 24th. Yeah. So that's all coming up as well. So tell us more about what we're going to learn on that day about beer and wine.
Well, I believe we're talking about some different styles. So it's Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, Lager, which you just threw up one on the board with Stella Artois. That's what we're covering on the 17th. Australia is in its summertime. So, we're not going to get into heavy fat drinks. Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, probably going to delve into something a little close by into New Zealand. I mean, these are great wines to celebrate the holiday season over in the hot weather. I'm sure New Zealand wines do pretty well for sales in Australia as well because they're so strong in those two varietals. And you have some strength of that as well in Australia. But this is really what New Zealand is known for. And that's part of the Pacific region and the discussion. Pinot Noir is a fantastic grape. It's light, it's easy, lots of notes of cherry. Sometimes you get inflections of strawberry in there. Tobacco leaves, if it's been aged in bottle a little while, cinnamon. It just goes really well. Nice levels of acidity. It's a great wine in hotter weather. I mean, especially in some of the shearing heat that you're going to start to experience quite soon. On the Canadian and American side, we get in, I believe, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, and a stout. And these are awesome styles. Now, the styles I picked are international and truly global. And that way it has a much wider reach because we're going to get into the history of them. We're going to talk a bit about the grapes themselves. They have rich histories. We're going to talk a bit about what it pairs with, the celebratory aspect. Talk a bit about wine and beer history too, because you got to delve into a bit of that to start things off, and some fun facts just to get people's heads around how vast this subject is. But it's so fun and so engaging. It's what better to engage people with than a fine beverage in your hand?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and I just checked the date. That's actually, so it's a week sort of now for the Australian one.
Yeah, because
And then sort
Aussie
of 2 weeks
time
now
is,
for the American one, yeah, or the USA
that's
time
true
zone.
because you guys are what, I think 15 hours ahead of me or behind me. I can't remember, but I believe I'm up at 3 or 5 in the morning doing this one on the 16th, not the 17th for the Australian side, but the 17th rolls ahead sooner for you than it does for us.
Yeah,
And then, of course, the other side, it's the reverse. I think I have you prying out of bed in the middle of
that's
the
it.
night to sit down and
So
talk about this one. So,
the one on the 17th is like now, next
yeah,
week. So, or in about 40 minutes. So what time is it there now for you?
it is 6:19 p.m.
Ah, sweet. So it's beer o'clock for you anyway. No,
It
is that
is.
right?
This is the happy hour. This is the time. I see
Actually, no,
Carol.
the time is different. I've got to double check my time. The time is different. You're right. Because you got to get out of bed yeah, you're right. You got to get out of bed at 3 a.m., haven't you, or something?
Yep.
Because we're doing it at our time. I remember
Yeah.
now.
All right. It'll be about as dark as it is right now. Daylight savings kicked in here. So at 5 o'clock, it's black outside and it's coming earlier. So we get into the darkest part of the year, December 21st. It's the reverse for you. It's the brightest time of year in December 21st. And I want to say hi to
Longest day is
Carol.
your shortest day.
I want to shout out to a couple people in the audience. I see Ingor and Carol are part of it. They fired out a hello. I imagine we have quite a few more people watching this live. But this is a great way to ring in the holiday cheer because you can really engage globally here. And not only that, we're going to have a bit of a session where we're going to open up the floor, I believe, Scotty? And what that does is it gets people to talk. You're going to meet people you've never met before. And this is our own version of the virtual party and the happy hour with Scotty and Rob, kicking off the holiday season. It's been a tough last, 20 months getting out of this pandemic. And what we've learned, too, is the power of virtual. You can engage from home now. This is awesome. We have all the technology at the fingertips. And I love it because I get to meet so many people hosting these things, as do you when you come live and you talk System 1357. And, on another note, you definitely want to watch the video that Scotty's going to be up, or the live Scotty's going to have with the book, and to talk about System 1357, because it's a brilliant coaching system on sales and business.
I agree.
Yeah. So I've got a little wine here. We can't really talk. This is sort of a prelude to what's going to come. This is a Shiraz. Now it has a bit of Viognier in it, which is a white, heavy, more full-bodied white grape. And the French do this in the Northern Rhone. And what it does is it adds fruitiness and floral notes to a thicker bodied wine, helps extract more of the red or the skins, that it with the red grape itself. And so I believe about 5, maybe 10% Viognier, 90% Syrah Shiraz. Now, Shiraz is a hybrid, or it's a blend. Sorry, it's a crossing between two grapes, Deriza, which is a heavy tannic red grape, and Mondus Blanche, which people don't even think of these things, when you talk grapes. So this is some of the stuff we're going to get into. This is from Alchemy Winery. This is in the Franklin River. So this is West Australia. It's not a big zone of production. It's about 4,000 acres. It's
Where's
a
it
cool
from?
climate. This is in Franklin River, so it's West Australia. I believe it's about 180 miles or 180 kilometers east of the Margaret River Valley and
Okay.
something like about 300 kilometers south of Perth.
Yeah.
So it's on the other end of the country from you. And obviously, Southeast Australia is the wine producing power of Australia. You have all kinds of regions. You get the Clarendon Valley. It's really well known for things like Riesling. You get into Coonawarra, really well known with its Terra Rosa or iron-rich soils for Cabernet Sauvignon, Barossa, for Shiraz, Cab. There's so many options in Australia. You have sweet wine production as well. I mean, it's around the Murray-Darling River Valley, I believe. And I believe that valley is actually drying up. You guys go through quite a few droughts in
Cycles.
Australia itself.
Lots of cycles.
But yeah, but this is beautiful. If you can see this, it's got a heavy ruby red clear color in the glass. It almost has this, doesn't have quite a brickish rim to it, but there's hues of purple in here as well. This has been aged in French oak. I think about 20% in French oak. It's spent 12 months in barrel. What happens is you soften the wine. You soften the rougher edges of the tannins, the astringency of it. Makes it easier to drink. And this one would go really well with your barbecued steak, burgers, even your meat lovers pizza, things like that. Shiraz tends to have a bit of a lot of black fruit in it, blackberry, a lot of hints of red cherry in there.
I'm amazed you even can find that stuff in there, to tell you the truth. I know when I get a wine and I go, oh, that smells good, but that's as far as I can go.
But this one just smells delicious. There's a bit of pepper on the nose as well. Sometimes you get a bit of mintiness on it. It's grows in cooler regions. I mean, it's that whole region around the Franklin River is quite Mediterranean-like in climate, and it does really well with grapes like Shiraz. And I think there's other options like Riesling does really well there too.
Well, and between now and when we get together to do the live and the Zoom session with everyone, I want you to teach me on that session how I can find all those different things you talk about. So that's your homework between now and then. I want you to say, well, how do I smell that stuff? How do I differentiate those? I can't believe you even find them. To me, it just smells awesome. So I want you to try and teach me how to do that when we get back together.
We will for sure. And obviously there's a little bit of difference between how you taste something with effervescence, which also increases, that means carbonation, that increases the acidity in the drink like beer. You tend to smell first, then look, then taste. Whereas you look, smell, taste when it comes to a still wine. And the reason is carbonation lifts a lot of the aromas out already because you've got air pockets popping up and it starts to lift the esters from the yeasts and the malts and the hops in the case of beer. Sparkling wine tends to do it with the berry sets itself. And if you don't take a chance to smell it at first, some of those aromas are lost or they're much harder to capture in the glass. I like to use also, we'll talk about glass styles as well. That's something we'll get into.
Sounds good to me.
Well. Why do you have a large glass? Because this opens up a lot of flavor compounds. This really opens up a lot of things. In fact, when you have a sparkling wine like Prosecco or Champagne or Franciacorta from Italy, it opens up a lot of things for you. The flutes tend to just push everything through a narrow nozzle. It's almost like drinking beer out of a bottle as opposed to a glass. A lot more opens up when it's in glass.
Well, look, we'll wrap up.
We're going to get into, why such a nice, rich red wine during the holiday season? Well, I can tell you one thing. Women love chocolate. And if you want to fire a gift under the basket of the tree, nothing better than some nice cheeses, crackers, chocolate, and a kick-ass bottle of wine.
I totally agree. Hey, but listen, people can learn more about you there. We'll wrap up because we are getting back together next week to talk about it. It's only $20 and there's an agenda that Rob's going through. He's going to teach us more about beer and wine. I've certainly got an objective of what I want to learn, and it's going to be exciting to see. And we're doing it next week in Australia and the week after in the USA. So go and check it out. Here it is here. And so it's basically free, right? It's the cost of 2 beers when you go out. Shout Rob a beer and he's going to teach us more about it. So it's a really
and you know what? And you don't have to be complex. Go shopping. We're going to send you shopping on the wines that are suggested off that link itself. But you don't have to go hard and complex. For as little as really about an extra $35, $40. You can sit down with a couple loved ones and tune right into this thing.
Yeah, it's going to be good
Like, think
fun.
about it. You can have a dinner party of 4, join in. Where can you join in for a combined cost of $50 to participate in something like this and have a hell of a lot of fun?
Well, mate, I've got another call I've got to do in another half an hour.
You're a
So,
busy boy.
well, I sort of sometimes I agree to things and then realize what I've agreed to later and go, did I really do that? Did I really line those up back to back?
That's
Anyway.
hilarious. Well, big shout out to everyone who watched this. It's awesome that you all tuned in. This is terrific. If you have any questions or comments, you can actually just reach out to Scotty and myself if you're on LinkedIn, Facebook. We're pretty easy cats to find. My website, thedrunkengrape.com, you can hit up info@thedrunkengrape.com as email. I get those emails. So there's a lot that we're very accessible human beings here. So if you have questions about Scotty's and my events coming up together, Scotty's System 1357 event itself, these are definitely reach out to us both.
All right, Rob. Listen, mate, you go and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
On this other call, then I'm going to go for another surf, and that's my day sort of wrapped up. So, all right, mate.
Awesome.
Listen, really good talking. We'll talk soon. So thanks, everyone, for coming.
Cheers, brother.
Strive for healthy, wealthy, and wise, and we'll talk soon. See ya.
Bye for now.